You are listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. My name is Amanda, and I'm joined by my two friends, Stephanie and Tyler. We are a trio of coaches on a mission to ignite a collective movement where authenticity, self-discovery, and purposeful living take center stage. Each episode, we go live in the Kaya way. Kaya is an open invitation to show up authentically and vulnerably. It's a safe space to allow ourselves to be worthy and enough now. It's a celebration of our individuality and diversity. So, welcome to the show. We're happy that you're here, and we invite you to join us in today's conversation.
Hello.
Hi, friends. We're back.
Another Monday. Here we are.
Another collective.
I felt that too. I was like, oh, okay. This is how we're starting today. Got it.
Well, I was just listening to like our intro. Just do you is like this most of the time when the intro plays, like my mind's wandering off into something else. But today I was just really listening to the intro and like the words, and I was just like, wow, that really is us. Like I think we've done a really good job of describing our show. I was just taking a moment of appreciation for that, because I was like, oh, we really do. Every single week, we just show up. And it was funny because backstage before we hit live, we were like, what are we talking about today? You know, because that's our process, is we show up and then we figure out what we're going to talk about. And some days we don't know, and we just press the live button anyway. And we just we really surrender to the moment. And I think there's just something really powerful in letting go. And I think that's why we always have such like a sigh, because it's like, there's nothing right now that we have to worry about or think about or be concerned about. And it's very relaxing every time we like press that live button and we come together like this. So that's what I was thinking as like the intro was playing. Welcome to Tyler's Thoughts.
Well, and I love that that's to like the extent of like the quote unquote planning that we do for Kaya. Like we're just like, okay, well, how are we checking in? 15 minutes before the show, and we're like, what rabbit hole might we want to dive into today? And then just allowing that to be whatever it is. And I agree. I think that is really special, the embodiment of the surrender. Because that's not always easy. I think we're often trying to we want to know 100 steps ahead. Well, what's going to happen next? And what are we going to talk about? And where's the script? And where's, all of these things. Like, well, I want to know what's going to happen. What if we get on and we have nothing to say? Which with us, I'm not sure. Not sure that that's possible.
Could you imagine an episode where we just sit here and not say anything for 50 minutes?
Oh, it would be so fun. That would be so awkward and so fun.
I know, but I can't imagine it though.
No, because there's
I think we
many...
would just laugh the whole time. We would be like, okay, that's awkward. Then we just laugh.
Well, and there's always so many rabbit holes to explore, And I think, I know one time we had talked about if we didn't land on the name Come As You Are, I think one time I might have mentioned this. I was like, ooh, we could have totally called this podcast Down the Rabbit Hole or something like that, because every single week we just kind of go down and we start off kind of light and just talking about something basic like our morning routine or whatnot. And then all of a sudden we're connecting it back to world peace and how we're going to balance out the energies of the world and the cosmos. And it's welcome to our brains, and it's so fascinating. I find to just be in our thoughts. I don't know.
I'm curious now. Tyler, you were explaining, okay, what your sigh was about. Amanda, what was yours? Like what, like when you were sighing, like what was your
Good question.
Well, besides the like, I think collective energy of what that is, but also I think I would probably like say similar to Tyler, like, oh, we're here, and I think this like feels like such a safe space, and then like grounding in that like, you know, taking a deep breath. Oh, we've arrived, or in that the presence, I guess. Yeah, that's the first things that come to mind. I'm curious, since you asked the question, what about you?
Yeah, very similar. And I think today there was also this element of exhaustion. It's like, oh my gosh. Because I'm watching my sister's dogs these days, and it's been 9 days now, and today is actually the last day. And so she has 2 dogs, I have a dog, so it's 3 dogs and a cat, and it's intense, very overwhelming. I thought after 2 days already, nope, I'm gonna not make it. And then the only goal I had for those 10 days is that everyone remains alive. That was really like low standards. Yeah, because it's intense. It's just, and one of them is a young dog. He's just 5 months old now, 4 or 5 months. So that's a challenge on its own. And then my dog gets very energized when there's other dogs around. So anyway, so my sigh was also the arriving here, but then also the like, thank God I can take a break and I can tune into this very constant safe space. And also a little bit of, dear dogs, please behave for the next hour so I can focus on the podcast. So we'll see. So if you ever see me all of a sudden jumping out of my seat, that's probably because one of the dogs is doing something he or she's not supposed to. Yeah.
I find it very interesting when we like when you take on a challenge like that, like dog sitting, because I've done dog sitting before and I'll never do it again. I don't like it at all. And maybe it was because the one time I did dog sitting, it was not the greatest experience of my life. Like, and the dogs that I was sitting for were like little devils, and like, oh my gosh, it was awful. Like, I was like, okay. And I did not get paid enough for that assignment at all. Like, there was like little to no compensation. And
yeah, I'm writing a bill. I'm writing.
Yeah,
like,
seriously, I understand why dog sitters now charge what they do, because you think your pet is like the perfect little creature, but then when a stranger comes around and is like trying to watch and care for it, they turn into little devils, I swear. Because again, it's like you're a stranger in somebody else's home. Well, not even a stranger. I was doing this for like my friend's mom. And so I'd been over there. The dogs knew me enough, but still, like, you're not their person. You're not their, and I find that like dogs are like very, they like go wild when it's not when it's not their person there, their human taking care of them. At least that was my experience, because these dogs were like all over the place. And I was like, I am never doing that again, ever. unless you're going to pay me a respectable wage to do that. Because it was so stressful. It was so Stephanie, I understand that sigh of like, oh, like, thank God this is almost over. And I love dogs too. And I thought,
but
this
it's
will be fun.
different.
It's different when it's not your dog.
Yeah.
Well, my sister does this, and so like seeing, sometimes she'll have like 9, 10, she has up to 13 dogs, and she does it from her home. And not all the dogs are small. Like, she has like big Great Danes, so like she has ponies in her house. Like, and I love dogs too. And so like, I think it's so sweet and we love going to visit, but we visit. I couldn't imagine having 13 dogs in my house.
That's wild. Actually, that's unbelievably wild.
Yeah.
So I had my own dog in kindergarten, what I called it, for a while, which was so amazing. So in the morning, the dog sitter came and picked up all the dogs from the neighborhood and then drove them to this open, I don't know how to say this, like there was this open space for the dogs to just roam around in their pack. So they were put together with, I don't know, 15 other dogs or so. Mm-hmm. And then they were spending the day together and, they could play and do all things together. And that, of course, that's a great way for dogs to engage in social interactions, especially for my dog, because she gets tired the most from social engagements. Like I can do mental games with her, I can go biking with her, but when she's with other dogs, she really is knocked out afterwards. Like she really needs to rest. And I could really tell how good that was for her. And but that's like a different situation because my dog had to fulfill certain requirements to be there.
Yes.
Like she had to be somewhat behaved. Of course, she had to be like socially agreeable with other dogs and like a couple of other things. So they do really have a screening system so that when those dogs are being put in the pack, that they do actually behave with one another, right? And no one bites or does any weird things or whatever. So that was really cool. But then dog sitting 13 dogs at your own home. Wow. Yeah. I don't know. That's probably like one of my nightmares.
Well, okay. She does have a similar like screening process. And there's like, you have to meet the dog, like a meet and greet and meet the dog first to see. And she like she's so passionate about what she does. So like, even her initial calls, the intake calls are very like thorough and she's asking, do they get along with other dogs and these types of things. So like that makes a big difference, right? Because you can't have a bunch of dogs who are unsocialized like that. Like it's just not safe for the dogs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I actually did that last year or the last 2 years, actually. I went on this platform and offered like dog sitting services. But through those kinds of ads, you get like the worst dogs because those are people who don't have like a support system around the dogs or sometimes just are in need for someone because it doesn't work out with family or whatever, which is fine. But I have yet to get a dog that is well behaved. And the number one thing I now have put on my profile there for if I want to sit another dog is that they need to be lead trained. Like it's not okay if you give me some kind of like gigantic 25-kilo dog and he or she can't even walk next to me on the walk and constantly pulls the lead. I mean, that's so unhealthy, like that is not okay. And sadly, what I found is that most dogs actually are not even having basic training so that when you walk them, like not even the owners can walk their dog without the dog pulling on the lead, which I find like, how are you not at least going to like some kind of training facility for a couple of sessions for basic training so that your dog walks next to you and just has the basic commands? Because I would find that so mentally draining every day to have a dog that is not behaving. I don't know how people do that who walk their dog every day. Like in my neighborhood, I have so many of those. And the dogs constantly bark and pull the lead. And I'm like, how are you remaining a sane person? Because I would have gone insane if I were in your shoes already. I don't know. But I find that this is more the majority than the minority, sadly.
So my dog is definitely not trained like that.
So Tyler, tell us, how are you doing?
Okay, so my dog's like almost 14 years old now, so I'm not going to train her at this point, but I'm just sitting here. I was like almost cracking up as you were talking, Stephanie, because I was like, the other day I tried to take her to the park. Now we have a big backyard. We have space and she's a dachshund, so she doesn't need a ton of space to like run around and play before she gets like tired. Like her little legs are tiny, you know what I mean? And now that she's close to being 14, like she's doesn't really move at all as much, or you know, as much as she used to when she was younger. But because we've always had a big yard, we've always had a pool, so she would jump in the pool, you know, so it's not like she doesn't get exercise. It's just not like, it's not like, you know, it's not like we ever take her to a dog park, you know, or anything like that. So she really doesn't have a lot of socialization with other dogs, except for our other chunky Chihuahua that we have here at the house too. But she like, so the other day I took her to the park because I was like, it was a nice day. And I was like, I'm going to go take a walk. And my grandma was like, oh, you should take the dog. Never again will I do that. I was like, I put her on the leash. She gets really excited, first of all, like super excited. And then she doesn't know how to control the excitement. And she's like, again, a dachshund, mind you. Okay. And she's like yanking the leash. And I'm like, slow down. We're trying to walk. Okay. And she's trying to sprint. And I'm over here. I'm like, and again, she's old too, you know? And it was like, she didn't know where she was. So I think that was scaring her. Like there was so much that I was like, okay, we're turning around and we're going home. Like never again. And, you know, I realized because I didn't really raise this dog. Like this was my mom's dog. And then my mom just kind of left her, which that's another story. For another time. But so, you know, I look at her and I was like, okay, that when she passes away and I get my next dog, whenever that will be, that's the first thing that I'm going to do is take the dog for basic training, because I realized my parents, every dog that I had as a kid, we never took them for basic training, never did any of that. I didn't even think that was common practice until I got older. And I was like, oh, you can take dogs to like school and like doggy daycare. Like, again, I didn't know these things existed because my parents just never like prioritized that, and never like, and looking back, I was like, okay, maybe they weren't the best pet owners, you know? And because I think it's so important. I think it's really important for dogs to have that socialization and to be able, because I would love nothing more than to be able to take my dog and go sit on a patio and like have lunch with the dog on the patio and like, you know, enjoy the nice sunshine. But I can't do that because she literally freaks out and does not know how to behave in society. Like, yeah. So
I'm just imagining someone overhearing our conversation, and if we removed like dog, and just like if this was like people, like just talking about people, like they need to be well trained. They need to.
She does not do well in society.
Yeah. She's not socialized.
I mean, but it's the same. I mean, you know, Amanda, you say that, but at the same time, like we send toddlers to like preschool for that kind of stuff, like, you know, for socialization skills and where they learn manners and they learn how to behave and, you know, around other people. Like we do it to adults or we do it to kids, you know, so it's really not that different. And can we just take a minute to talk about like the parents that put their kids on leashes? Do you guys, Amanda, do you ever do that? Do you ever put Dominic on a leash?
No.
Okay, thank God. I always see these like little kids on leashes and I'm like, they're not a pet. And I get it. Like I get like the protection side of things, and I'm not a parent, so I don't know what it's like to raise a little human, but I'm always freaked out when I see kids on leashes.
Does that happen often?
Yes.
Do you see that often?
It's a very big thing here in the States.
I mean, I know it exists, but I thought this is like, I don't know, 3 people or something.
No. Like so many people now, they have nicer ones now where like the parent can put on like a wrist strap and then they put a wrist strap on the kid. And I'm like, okay, cuffs are, I guess, a little better than leashes. I don't know.
I've seen ones that are like little backpacks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that too. I mean, not in real life, but yeah.
Yeah, not in real life.
I'm not in my real world, you know. I think in Germany that's very frowned upon.
I can't say that I see it like a lot.
Oh God, that must be an American thing. I'm so embarrassed now.
Well, I'm not saying it doesn't exist here. I just think it's not as common. Or I don't know if that would be really weird. I think you would be judged so hard here for doing that. But I'm just thinking, like, the parents who do that, isn't it just like, obviously you want to teach your kid to stay by your side, or when you hold hands to not just like yank it off and run somewhere else, right? Like you want your kid to, like, I don't know, I feel like this is a trust thing. And of course, as a kid, you are getting curious, you do things, but then I'm wondering, how is the parent not there with the attention to stop that from happening or whatever? I feel like this is just an excuse for the parent to be distracted and do other things while the kid is, let's call it, safe on the leash. I don't know. That's just what I'm getting from this. I'm like, how are you not there with your attention on your kid when you were outside that you feel like you need? That's my very judgy perspective on this.
I could speak to this. I can speak to this as somebody who has a part-time job in retail, and I work at a store, and the amount of people that come in with their kids and have no idea where the hell their kid is in the store astonishes me. Like the other day, I witnessed a couple, and they just let their daughter just run wild in the store. And they were just so consumed with like looking at like, oh, what bag they were going to buy. And then they looked around and they were like, oh, where's the kid? And I'm over here because I was like manager on duty. I was like, of course, like following this kid around because I didn't want her to get hurt. But I mean, the kid was like climbing behind mannequins and like getting into the, and I was like, get a hold of your child, please. Like, it was like 2 seconds of cuteness, and then I was like, and then I turned into sheer frustration. And I was like, okay, you cannot this kid must have been like maybe 2, total toddler. You can't just let a toddler go wild in a store and then have no idea where they are. It was like mind blowing. And that happens way more often than I ever thought it was going to. I was like, I mean, you would think most parents like know where their kid's at all times, but so many don't. And I'm like, oh my God, like what, you guys are more concerned about what handbag you're going to purchase than where's your daughter? Scary, very scary.
Amanda, you're the experienced parent.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Yeah.
I'm the parent in the room.
You're the parent in the room. Let me go at it, Amanda.
Oh gosh, I think so from my perspective, and I think it's being also a child of multiples, like I'm one of 4 and I'm the oldest. So like I was kind of like the mommy of the group, right? Like keeping everybody in check and making sure everyone like stayed close. And it is tricky because kids do kind of just like take off, or I feel like sometimes, especially actually when you do have multiple kids, it's hard. Like you turn your head for a second and they're like off and, doing something. So as much as like, yeah, you think you would know exactly where they are, but they're so like quick to just explore and be curious of the world that sometimes, yeah, it's easy to have them, not necessarily like, I've never lost my kid, but it'll like, wander off looking at something, or you know what I mean? So I feel like it's it's not easy. It's not easy being a parent. And I think, like, you know, as you're explaining your frustration, Tyler, like, this is like, I don't know how, like 10 minutes of these people being in the store, and then these people have this like kid 24/7. You know, like it's a lot. It's a lot. And I think parenting isn't easy, and especially because there isn't education around it. Like, we aren't educated on how to be parents, and I think that blows my mind. Like, how are we not given? Okay, yes, and everyone, like, you know, that, oh, there's no like parenting handbook, but why not? Like, why hasn't? And yes, maybe it's not going to be a one size fits all. Here's the parenting handbook, because every kid is different, and you know, all these things. But even just having that understanding of every kid is different, and so the way you parent one kid is not the way you parent another kid. Or then there's like learning differences, you know, of parents and kids. Like, there's so much dynamic there that there should be more education on this. Like, I've talked to so many parents, like even my friends, and when they have that experience of their baby being handed to them for the first time, especially when it's their first, you're just kind of like, okay, what am I supposed to do with this thing? Like, what am I supposed to do? No one told me what to do next, right?
That's what's always freaked me out about parenting, is like, you have a baby and you're in the hospital for like a day, 2 days, and then they just send you home. And it like absolutely blows my mind that now you have this little human that you are responsible for 24/7.
365.
You know, like
at least 18 years. At least
18
Wait,
years.
how many days is that?
That's a lot.
Hold on,
I don't know. Calculate that and figure that out.
Wait,
Like,
I don't know. I might scare myself.
That's always freaked me out. Is like you are. What's the number?
6,570 days. So that's 18 years. And I mean, not all kids, like, you know, I don't know, 18, I feel like, is kind of, at least here, like, kind of considered, you know, more like adult. But there's still your responsibility. You still, okay, maybe not like, you know, maybe keeping them alive necessarily in that sense, you know, but they're still your responsibility. So, like, for a lifetime.
I don't. Ew.
I find that so fascinating that you're so freaked out by this, because I mean, humanity has survived for like a couple of years now on this planet, and you know, there were times where babies were born and there wasn't even a house like a roof over their heads, or they didn't even have a proper house or whatever, let alone educational parenting books. And we just turned out all fine. So I think that there's such a thing called like instincts. And this is, I think, what I would maybe, when we talk about teaching and learning, that's what I would go back to. Like, yeah, just try to connect to your instinct, or just let your instincts take over and do the thing. Versus like, I mean, yeah, there are, and I think there are already so many books on parenting, but of course, everyone who ever wrote a book on parenting obviously thinks that they have figured it out. And I need to say that also lots and lots and lots of parenting books and baby, toddler, young children psychology are just wrong, like so wrong, that they just presume. I don't know. This is hard to explain in like 2 minutes, but that's the stand that I want to take here, is that so many like psychological books on how brains function from young children are just not right. They're just built on something that was established many decades ago that is just plain wrong. And now we have all these psychology books on upbringing, and they're just all really wrong.
And
do I need to explain this further, or?
No. Well, I think even if they're not, right? If they're not rooted in like outdated kind of science, it's also a lot of pressure. Like there's so many things to know and so many things to do. And then like, okay, but that's not my kid, or you know what I mean? Like my kid's different. It's not like, or what you're teaching in this parenting book doesn't apply to my kid, or my kid doesn't, like respond. That's the word I'm looking for, to that, whatever, you know what I mean, that you're teaching. So yeah, it's Tyler, go ahead.
I'm having lots of thoughts, and like I'm sitting here really like I'm probably gonna have to journal a lot after this. There's many things coming up that I didn't quite think were gonna come up, and I obviously didn't know we were going down this rabbit hole. But you know what I find very fascinating about all of this? I mean, we started talking about dogs, and then we talked about kids on leashes, and then we, transitioned into parenting. And now I'm going to transition again and bring it back to what we do in coaching. And it's very much the same thing where, like, I think every just like, you're raising a kid, every kid is different. Just like every client that you coach is different, and like, yes, we have to have like best practices, and there has to be, guidebooks, and there has to be systems, and, all of these tools. But like at the end of the day, it's like, how do you take these resources, these guides, these points, and then personalize them to meet your needs, whether that be as a parent or in whatever area, because I'm just sitting here having this like big thought of like, you can literally have a guide on how to train a dog, but your dog might be completely different than what all of the recommendations in that guide are saying. Or, you know what I mean? Like there's that whole, like, it's like we've got to have the systems and the tools, and then know how to customize those and personalize those and make them our own. And I think that's really where the power comes into all of this, is like, it's that personalization aspect of it. And it's like how you parent is different than how I would parent. And it doesn't make my parenting right or your parenting wrong or vice versa. It's just like, this is, how this is what I know to be best, or, and I coming back to, I think it was Amanda, I don't know who said it, but like the pressure, like there's so much pressure to be a parent. And I think that's what I was like kind of downloading there was like, oh my God, there's just so much pressure to like raise the kids in certain ways. And then you've got all of the influences of like your ancestors and, parents and grandparents all trying to chime in to tell you how to do it. And it's like, I just don't want that, like truthfully, it was more of that, like, I don't want to deal with that, or like, have that as part of, the experience, but it's just a natural part of the experience. And I don't know where I'm going with any of this, but it's like, I just have like a really deep appreciation right now for customization and for this idea that like, whatever you do it your way.
I want to bring this back to Amanda, what you said earlier, like, why isn't there, you said something like, why isn't there a manual for parenting or something? I wonder, is that what you were alluding to there, or did you mean something else that you maybe wanted to mention?
I mean, yes. And I feel like that's something like that's like percolating in the background for me, where I'm like, I think that's where I'm also headed in part of my business, but because I think that it's important. But again, it's not just like a black and white, like, okay, here's how to be the best parent ever. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Like, that's just because then comes in Tyler's like customization, right? But I think it is the reminder of that there is no like formal education for being a parent. And it's something that if you choose to be a parent, you do all day, every day, for however many days, and there isn't I don't know, there isn't any education on it. Like, okay, there is. I shouldn't say that there isn't, but it's just, it's not a requirement for becoming a parent. So you can also choose like what you participate in, or what books you learn, or books you read, rather, or just what types of content you consume, or even just, the basic understanding of, yes, maybe this works for your friend, or maybe, that Instagram family that you follow that looks like they're picture perfect isn't actually so picture perfect. Like that understanding, those like more generalized types of things that we're so good at being hard on ourselves, that reminder that that's not actually how it is and how it's meant to be, or even just, unpacking those belief systems and the generational trauma and blah, blah, blah. Like, for each person is going to look different. Like my story and my journey and my parents' journey looks different. So even if I did read the Parenting 101 manual, the understanding or the journey that I'm on is different than the next person. So I don't think that it's limited to a manual, but I do think that having some, I don't know, the general knowledge or awarenesses of even just this generational trauma being passed on, and that oftentimes our kids are our biggest mirrors and reflections of where maybe we need to heal, or where we need to work on a part of ourselves. And that can be very triggering, and it can also be very difficult to manage. And if we don't even have that awareness, it makes it even that much harder. So there's a whole lot there. So I don't know if that specifically answered your question exactly, because I don't think there is just like, oh, here's a manual, and like, that the perfect parent manual. Like, that's not realistic either.
I think like there's so much out there what you could consume as a parent or someone who's about to become a parent. And this is the same actually for whether or not we're talking like human kids or dogs or whatever.
Yes.
There's so much out there that you could inform yourself about. But then the question that I'm sitting with right now is like, is that something people want? Or do they have the energy?
What did you say, Stephanie? Do they want?
Is that something that they want to do to really like be more educated around parenthood or whatever? Like, is that something they want to sit with and they want to consume themselves with to understand better the psychology of intergenerational trauma or whatever? Like, is that something they want to? So I think this is more where the challenge is, not necessarily that that isn't out there. Maybe we could work harder on having more free resources for people. I would totally agree with that, because it's not equal in like what people have access to. I definitely see that. But I still think it's also a matter of like, do you want that? Like, do these parents or becoming parents, do they actually want that? And I think this is where most people will probably say nope and just stay in their comfort zone. Because I see that with the dog parents, they just don't want that. They just accept the status quo. They accept that they have a dog that's not well trained and that keeps pulling the lead when they meet another dog, and then they yell at their dog and like, oh, and then they pretend like, oh, that's the first time it ever happened, where I've met them 30 times already and I know it happens every time that their dog pulls the lead. And I just walk by with my dog and think, yeah, well, just freaking go to training. But I can't, force that person to go to training. And I think with parents, it's probably the same.
I feel like across the board, it's like that. Like you can't force people into anything, Can't force somebody to, can't force somebody to go to the gym as much as, like as much as a personal trainer would love to force you to go to the gym, like it's personal choices. And I think this is like, this is where, and we've talked about this before too, but I'm going to say this and then I'm going to say another point. This is where it comes back to personal choice and our power as individuals. Like we get to choose. Do we want to go down that journey? Do we want to go down?
Can I just add one thing before you go to your next point? This is something that comes up between the three of us sometimes, where we say, freaking drink the Kool-Aid. Like just do it.
It's, I was going to say, like, it's like the second point that I was going to make here, which ties into drinking the Kool-Aid, like this is all interconnected. Everything is so interconnected, and it all stems on your choice. Are you going to drink the Kool-Aid or you're not going to drink the Kool-Aid? And like, if you want to be a better parent, there are tons of resources out there. There are tons of, books, manuals, blogs, podcasts. Like you can go down the rabbit hole. Again, coming back to the big like rabbit hole theme here. You can go down the rabbit hole if you want to. Like that is your choice. And there's something really powerful in that, in knowing that you can go down the rabbit hole if you want to. And like, this is why I cannot stand when people, talk about being stuck and talk about being like, like they have no power. You have all the power. You have all the power. You have all the power. And the thing is like when you choose to go down whatever rabbit hole you decide to go down, whether that's to become a better parent or a better dog parent, like it doesn't matter what rabbit hole. Yeah, it's going to take time and it's messy and it's not easy. But again, you have the power to do this, and it's a choice that you make or you don't make. And I'm not saying one choice is better than the other. It's totally up to you. At the end of the day, you have that decision to make as the adult, And like, that's what I love about all of this. And, I think that's what I love about coaching too, is that it all comes down to your choices, your actions or inactions. It's just so like freaking cool. I don't know. Like I've drinking the Kool-Aid, y'all. If you can't tell.
You're bathing in the Kool-Aid right now.
I know. Well, the sun's coming in. You see the terrible lighting here? It's like, oh.
I think that's like what we're here for, right? Like Tyler's got some like disco energy.
Like
sunlight.
I'm gonna tilt for a second because the sun's really bright. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, and I think that like this is a powerful reminder. Like I think for me, I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. Like, don't want even a parent that's listening for this to come across as like even just like a judgmental thing, because we're so good at judging ourselves and making ourselves feel like the worst parents ever, or just the worst, whether it's a dog parent or like we're just so good at that, right? And sometimes that like putting the blinders on, or like the ignorance is bliss, this saying, right? Like sometimes that is an easier way, you know, to kind of take that the comfort zone, stay in that space, because it feels easy, it feels comfortable. So it only makes sense that that's where you are. And I think this, what you're saying now, Tyler, is that like the important reminder that we do have the choice. It's more an empowering thing of, don't sit there in the judgment, like empower yourself to maybe make a different choice or do things differently. Yeah, maybe that's how your parents did it, or, you know, that's how your sister like does it, or how, I don't know, other people take care of their dogs, like whatever it is, right? But it doesn't have to be, even if you've done it that way for so long, it doesn't have to be the way that you continue to do it. You can always shift and change and make a different choice. And also know that it doesn't need to be super drastic. It can be a little like 1% shift, because that 1% over time does really add up and does make a difference in the long run. I don't know, that's what's coming up for me. I feel like I don't want people to walk away from this conversation feeling like judged, or because we already are, yeah, we're the best self-judgers. Like, we're so good at our own inner critic, you know?
I had that so hard in the last week with watching my sister's dogs here, that I made some choices that were not in alignment with what I usually would choose, because I was just so mentally exhausted and tired and whatnot. And then, yeah, I was judging myself really harshly. I was like, wow, you were such a bad dog owner, and da 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 da. And like, I was really in that spiral of negativity. And then I kind of said to myself, okay, you know what? You're doing the best that you can with the situation right now. And it's also really key to understanding that there is a difference between like, being in your comfort zone and being in what I think I was more in the last few days, was just surviving, just like barely making it, you know, just going through the day without like 10 mental breakdowns, maybe just 3 or 4. and then just being glad that, you know, everyone's okay, and, you know, I made it, everyone's fed, everyone like all good. And having this kind of like be a exceptional situation, and learning from this for the next time. You know, if my sister were to, I know she's not gonna, because obviously I will tell her about the joy I experienced. But if I were to be asked again in the future to take care of 2 other dogs, whether it's my sister's or someone else's, I would say, you know what, I can't do that mentally. I can maybe take on one for a couple of days, but that's it. Like, I can't do, that's just where my mental, I don't know, capacity ends, so to say. And so I definitely learned from this experience already that that I have, I just need to set some boundaries, that there is a capacity there, and that is definitely reached now. And next time I can, you know, make a better decision that works better for me. But again, like, I just wanted to make that difference between, okay, there is comfort zone, and then there is like when you're barely surviving, obviously, then you need to first like take care of yourself so that you get back to the comfort zone.
I would say, Stephanie, you were like last week is such a testament to your strength, the human strength, you know, because when you take on something like that, you don't know how it's going to go. You don't know. I mean, like you said, you went into it being like, this could be great. I'm going to watch the dogs. Like, it'll be fine. And then it turned out it wasn't such the greatest choice. And, you know, I think back to my dog experience there, and I was like, oh, not the greatest choice. And the next time she asked, I said no. I was like, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put myself through that. And it's the same, you know, we make a choice. We go down that path. We explore it. We see what happens. And you know, it's like this, it's this beautiful reminder that you can't fail. You know, you can't look at last week and be like, oh my God, I completely failed last week. You did not fail at all. You actually succeeded very well. And you succeeded in learning that, hey, I don't want to do this again. This is not my comfort, or this is not my comfort zone. This is not where I just naturally kind of belong. And that's cool. That's so cool, you know?
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, you might have been in the struggle zone last week, but you were also like, in a way, in very much like the growth zone, and learning so much about yourself and about your capabilities and your limitations and all of these kind of things. And now you have all of this amazing feedback to then come back, and next time you're presented with something like this, you have that feedback to then be able to make a better choice. And that's literally all this comes down to, is like, you make a choice, you go down that path, you get some feedback, and then you make another choice, or you tweak that, you do something different, or you tweak what's already working and you modify it and you optimize it. Like, that's all it is, a series of choices. And it's so, like, when you think of it like that, it's, to me, I just get so energized, because I'm like, we literally are limitless. Like, we have so much capabilities. We have so many things that we can do, that we can work towards. And the worst thing that can happen, the very worst thing that can happen, is we go through a hell week. We go through a real struggle week where we're like, oh crap, I really made a bad choice, and now I know I'm never going to do that again, or I'm going to do it completely different next time. That's it. We didn't fail. We're not miserable, terrible people. We just had too much, or we had taken on too much, or whatever. And we just learn, and we grow, and we just practice forgiveness and compassion and kindness. Like, that's all I want people to do for themselves, is like, forgive themselves, be kind to themselves, and be compassionate towards the growth. Because humaning is hard. And I just made up a new word, humaning.
We need to get that in the dictionary. That's
I love it. Yeah, good word. The word of the day, humaning.
I love that. I love that. And what a beautiful reminder. And it's so true. So I love that we landed there today, because I think that we unpacked a lot that could lead to us sitting in judging ourselves for not doing enough, or for not being good enough, but that's just not it. That's just not the truth.
Yeah. I work on that every single day, because I am the harshest critic for myself. I always have been. I always will be. But I have that awareness now, and I know every single day that I can be a little less critical. Again, it doesn't get resolved overnight, but it is something that I am personally actively working on.
And the awareness is huge.
I feel good. I feel good, y'all. This is good. Yeah. This is good. I love our Monday mornings. Our Monday.
Best way to start the week.
Yeah.
Our humaning for the week.
We're off to a good start, humaning.
Yeah.
That's what I'm taking away now too. Humaning, it gets to be hard sometimes, and that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, happy humaning, everybody. Thank you for being here with us. We'll see everybody next time.
For another humaning experience.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. You can follow the show on Instagram at Kaya the Podcast, and on YouTube and Facebook by searching Kaya the Podcast. If you haven't already done so, please help us keep the conversation going by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to join us next time for another deep conversation.